MMA Fighting presents Timeline: Jon Jones vs. Alexander Gustafsson 2. August 9th, 2008. UFC 87, Seek and Destroy, Minneapolis, Minnesota. The 6-0 Jon Jones makes his UFC debut on the prelims of UFC 87. Jones wins a unanimous decision over Andre Guzmão. Jones will go on to defeat UFC Hall of Famer Stephan Bonner at UFC 94, the 11-2 Jake O'Brien at UFC 100 by second-round guillotine, Brandon Vera by brutal elbows and punches in round 1 at UFC on Versus 1. This victory was also Jones's first main event. Vladimir Matyushenko by elbows in the first yet again, in a showcase main event in San Diego for UFC on Versus 2. November 14th, 2009, UFC 105. Couture vs. Vera, Manchester, UK. The undefeated Alexander Gustafsson makes his UFC debut against Jared Hammond. Gustafsson defeats Hammond by knockout in 41 seconds into round 1. December 4th, 2009, The Ultimate Fighter Finale Season 10. Las Vegas, Nevada. Jon Jones faces Matt Hamill as the co-main event at the Tough 10 finale at the Pearl at the Palms.
And Jon, there's obviously a lot of excitement surrounding this fight. A lot of people are excited to see you fight again. And I'm curious, because the last time we saw you in action, UFC 100, I mean, obviously you looked very good there, but it seems as though your career and your life has changed a lot since then. A lot of notoriety, a lot more publicity. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about it. You know, I have a goal and I have a dream in the sport, and that's to make it to the very top of the ladder. And I understand that, you know, getting to the top of the ladder, a lot of this stuff is going to come with it. So I accept what it is, and I just try to do my best at it. You know, my main focus is just being a provider for my family, you know, being the best man I can be, being some sort of leader and a role model to, you know, younger athletes who want to do the same things or similar things. And, you know, just do the best to make it to the top of that ladder.
Jones would suffer a very controversial loss at the Tough 10 finale. After completely dominating Hamill, Jon Jones would lose by disqualification for using illegal downward elbows.
I try to look at everything in life for the best, and now I'm not worried about being undefeated anymore, so I can go out there and be more relaxed. I think I hit him so many times, and I just didn't understand why I wasn't getting stopped. Like, is he waiting for me to gas or something? Like, what is this? I looked at him like twice. I was like, why am I still hitting this guy?
April 10th, 2010, UFC 112, Invincible, Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. Gustafsson returns to the cage to face the undefeated Phil Davis. Alexander Gustafsson receives his first loss of his career at the hands of Davis and loses by submission in round 1. October 16th, 2010, UFC 120, Bisping vs. Akiyama, London, England. Gustafsson is set to face veteran Cyril Diabate. He wins by second-round rear naked choke.
Well, all this week I met a lot of Swedish fans who came here just for you. Obviously, Swedish MMA very much growing. Why don't you say something to them? I know a lot of them came here to support you.
Just want to thank my fans at home. You mean everything to me. Without you, I wouldn't have this motivation that I had, and it's really good to have you here with me.
The Mauler would follow with another submission victory over James Tahuna at UFC 127 in Sydney, Australia.
How big of a deal is it when you fight? Because you know, we always get questions from fans. Please, especially the ones from Sweden, please interview Alexander. He's such a big star over there. When you fight, I mean, how much pressure do you feel from the Swedish market and the Swedish fans? Because you are, in fact, probably the most popular Swedish MMA fighter out there because of what you're doing in the UFC.
I don't feel any pressure at all. I just think it's fun to do what I do. It's my job, and I'm just happy that people like and follow me to my career. So.
At UFC 133, Evans vs. Ortiz, Gustafsson would easily dismantle Matt Hamill by second-round TKO.
How different of a fighter are you from the one who fought Phil Davis, especially when facing a wrestler? Did you feel that you were different out there?
Absolutely. I try to train, and I see myself like I want to beat the Alex who was fighting against Huna. And the next fight I'm gonna go, I want to beat Alex. I fought Matt Hamill. I want to be better after every practice. Involve and progress.
And at UFC 141, Lesnar versus Overeem, Gustafsson easily defeats the battle-worn veteran Vladimir Matyushenko.
All right, quickly, Alexander Gustafsson, Vladimir Matyushenko, fascinating fight. Old guard, new guard, who are you picking?
I'm picking Gustafsson there. I'm really surprised and kind of amazed that Matyushenko has been as good as he has for as long as he has. But I mean, he doesn't seem like a guy who's going to shoot up the ranks too much farther. He seems like he's just kind of be happy to hang around where he is for as long as he can. Gustafsson a lot better, I think, than many people realize.
February 5th, 2011, UFC 126, Silva versus Belfort, Las Vegas, Nevada. Jon Jones is booked against top-ranked and undefeated Ryan Bader.
Are you surprised that you are a 4-1 favorite? That so many odds makers, are picking you, and that really not a lot of people are actually picking him.
Wow, that's 4-1. That's big. I try not to play into odds. Gambling's against my religion, and I just don't gamble too often. I've tried it a few times. I suck at it. A little roulette, but
I'm not trying to call you out on gambling. I'm just saying, are you surprised that you're such a big favorite?
Yeah, I'm glad people believe in me, and hopefully no one loses their money. I'll say that.
In what would be his breakout performance of his career, Jones dispatches Bader via second-round guillotine. The UFC would offer Jones a short-notice title fight immediately after his victory.
There are a lot of moments in UFC history that we'll always remember. I think that was one of them right there when you were offered a title shot. Did you even know that was at stake?
I knew Rashad had gotten hurt, but I didn't see that coming. It was awesome, and God is really good.
And this is going to happen on March 19th, right?
Yeah, I got 6 weeks, so I have an after party tonight, but I definitely won't be drinking. It's right back to the drawing board, and I'm just so excited. I'm so grateful for this situation, and I think everything happens for a reason, and I'm not afraid of this moment. I feel as if it's my moment.
I know it's not ideal, but do you think 6 weeks is enough time to prepare for Shogun?
Yeah, I think 6 weeks will be great. I didn't get hurt at all. Actually, my big toe, I might have stubbed it on the way out, but I feel great. I'm already in shape, so right now it could only bring out an even tougher, more vicious, more fit Jon Jones.
Jon Jones now fighting March 19th for the UFC light heavyweight title. How did this whole situation come about?
We literally made this fight down by the octagon. It happened, I found out this afternoon at like 2 o'clock that Rashad was out. And, this is what we do, man. It's one of the cool things. It's not like boxing where if a guy falls out, you got to postpone the fight.
Any concerns at 6 weeks, his age, this might be too soon?
Listen, the guy's proved himself over and over and over again. I mean, he's taken everybody out. Every challenge that's been put in front of him, he's finished. Is he still a young guy, 23 years old? And yeah, he is, but he's so talented. He's so talented, and even tonight in such a big fight, he was in there. I'm sure he was nervous and had all those things, but he was so calm and cool, and he did walk through Bader.
March 19th, 2011, UFC 128 Shogun versus Jones, Newark, New Jersey. As promised, Jones returns to the UFC cage a little over a month after his last victory in the main event against Shogun Rua for the UFC 205-pound championship.
A lot of people were surprised when they found out that you've been signing your name as Champ 2011. How did that come about?
I believe in the law of attraction, and I believe that that you can speak things into existence. And I believe that when you know where you're going and you know what you want, the universe has a way of stepping aside for you. And me signing my signature with Champion 2011 on it, can't hurt me. It can't hurt me. It could only help me to believe it even more. So yeah. I mean, it works for me.
Question for Jon Jones. Could you please stand up?
Uh-oh.
Do you really think you could win this fight? Have you seen Alistair Overeem? Have you seen him fight the snake?
Hey, what's your name? What's your name?
Anthony.
Come on. I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't think I could beat Shogun. So.
Jones defeats Hua by third round TKO and becomes the youngest ever UFC champion.
Mr. Hammer, we just saw John Jones dismantle Shogun Hua. What do you think of that, what we just saw out there?
I think we saw a transition tonight, a transition of a new generation of fighter. His skill set is unbelievable, and all due respect to Shogun, it was just amazing because everybody knew that John had this incredible arsenal of weapons, and his ground game is, also incredible. But still, to see him actually dismantle him the way he did was incredible.
One of my co-managers, his name is Glenn, and he has a family that lives here in the New Jersey area. So before my fights, I like to find a really beautiful site, whether it's the top of a mountain, next to a stream, anything gorgeous, nature-wise. I like to associate nature with different levels of energy and all this. But anyways, that's a different topic. So we find a place in Paterson, New Jersey, where there's a bridge and there's this very powerful waterfall, and there's almost like a little mountain. And it was beautiful, but around this waterfall and everything, it was a really ghetto area. And as the guy pulls us up in his car, he's like, I'm in the passenger seat, Greg, Jackson, and Winklejohn's in the back seat. He's like, listen, guys, before I drop you off here, I want to let you know this is a pretty bad neighborhood, so you might want to be careful. And I'm like, dude, where at? We're all MMA guys. And he's like, well, I'm just letting you know, a lot of people get mugged here. Just as he said that, I turned to pull off my seatbelt, and the guy, I see an old Spanish couple like screaming, and they're like running. They look like they're out of breath big time. And I'm like, dude, they just got mugged. And he's like, no. And I'm like, maybe not, I'm tripping. You just put that in my mind. So Mike Winklejohn hops out of the car and he's like, you guys okay? And then she's like, the guy he just broke my window open, and he took all my stuff and he's running. And so I'm like, what? So Mike Winklejohn, without hesitation, he just starts running, right? And I'm like, holy crap. And then Greg Jackson, he just starts running, and they both start running. So I'm like, what is happening right now? So next thing you know, I have like sweatpants on, I have an iPod and my Droid X, my wallet. I'm like, where am I? What's going on? So I'm like, okay, it's time for me to take action. So I take my hands in my pockets, I throw my stuff on the floor, and I tell our driver, I'm like, dude, take care of my stuff. And I throw it on the floor, and I just start running, right? And I got these gazelle legs, so I'm running, right? And I'm running, and next thing you know, I catch up to my coaches, and I'm jogging, and there's a sprint, right? I'm like, so what do we do? We're gonna catch this guy? And he's like, John, you get back. He's like trying to swim move me, like get over me. He's like, get back, you don't need to be involved with this, right? And I'm like, nah, Coach, God, trust me, man, I'll be okay. So then I put the Jets on, I went TO on him. So I put the Jets on, and I catch up to the guy, I'm like, how you doing? You think you're gonna No, I'm joking. I'm joking. So anyways, the guy, I'm like closing in on this guy, I'm like 20 yards away. And the guy's like, you can see that he's starting to get winded. So he's like, he got this stuff and he's running. And he looks back and he usually sees me, 6'4", you got Greg and Wink like behind us. Yeah, Greg and Wink's behind me and I'm just running like, I'm gonna catch you, right? So the guy looks back and then he trips over his own foot. And so at the time he tripped over his own foot, I got so scared because I didn't know what I was gonna do when I actually caught him. So I actually started barking like, I'm gonna get you, like, So the guy's like, he looks back like, oh crap, but he's trying to stand up. And when he was standing up, I approached him when he's like in a, in your march, set, go type of stance, because he's like trying to get his momentum back. And one of his behind feet, I just came up with my foot and like scooped it out from under him with my foot, like just kicked him from the back, like kind of kicked his ankle out. And he fell down, and when he fell, he like, scraped his hands up pretty good. And so he's down on the floor, and I'm thinking like, I hope I don't get stabbed right now. So I'm just like looking at him like, should I ground and pound him? And Greg Jackson just comes out of nowhere and jumps on the guy's back, and he starts speaking Spanish, like, and like, I'm like, you know Spanish? All right, so I'm like, let me do something, right? So I grabbed the guy's feet, and then I put him in this move because I went to college for criminal justice, and I had a class defensive tactics. So I grabbed him and I figure four'd his legs, and I sat on his legs, and he's screaming at us, and Greg's like, speaking Spanish. So as I'm sitting on this guy's leg, catching my breath a little bit because we're sprinting uphill, I realized that I'm in like this Spanish neighborhood, and like all these people are coming out of their houses yelling Spanish across the street. I'm like, oh Lord, here we go. Like, what is happening? Like, Greg's yelling like in Spanish to people, and then a guy walked up to us, and he's like, yo man, that could have been my mama's car. And once he said that, I was like, yes, they're on our side. Like, I'm like, yeah, you punk, that could have been his mama's car. And so we hold them, and the police come, and you know, at that point, I'm just sitting and I'm resting. I'm like, you know, because I got a fight coming up, so I'm just holding this foot here. Like, man, you got me breathing hard and stuff. And so the police comes, get out of his car, and he's like, what are you doing here? Like, aren't you fighting tonight? And I'm like, yeah, man, I was trying to get my meditation on. And this guy, you know, but anyways, it was great, you know. The police didn't give us a ride back to the crime scene, so we had to walk all the way back through this neighborhood. You know, I'm looking around and stuff. I don't speak a lick of Spanish. So, yeah, it was pretty interesting. And the lady, she came, and she's like, oh, it's so good to see people like you guys here to help me. You guys cared enough to chase that guy. And the police had told her that I was fighting and everything. She was like, you know, God's gonna be with you tonight, man. You're gonna do good. God bless you, son. I'm gonna watch your fight. And I was like, thank you, ma'am. Then we went, and we all felt like superheroes. We just had the best meditation session ever, and I just felt really good after that. I was like, I gotta win this fight. I got the hard work, dedication, and now I got karma on my side. So it was crazy. It was good.
September 24th, 2011. UFC 135, Jones vs. Rampage, Denver, Colorado. Jon Jones returns for his first title defense against former UFC champion Rampage Jackson.
How sick are you of just being around Rampage? They're sort of forcing you guys to be on this traveling circus here.
You know what? I'm actually liking it. I'm liking it a lot. You know, Rampage's personality is very unique personality, and if you're not familiar with it, it can almost come across as it can take people back, a lot of people back. You know, Rampage has that, you know, in your face, you know, oh, I'm gonna knock you out, kid, and all this, and Mr. T talk. And the more I'm around it, the more I've humanized him, the more I've realized that he's just some heavy-handed Mr. T wannabe, you know, I'm getting ready to fight, instead of this intimidating, I'm Rampage Jackson and I'll knock your head off type of thing, you know. So now I'm like, all right, like, enough fun and games, let's see who's a better fighter, you know. So it's actually helped me humanize him a lot, being around it.
He and others have fueled this sort of this notion that you are cocky and trying to get fans to go against you because you've accomplished so much at such a young age.
Honestly, I think that's what it is. Literally, it could be anything. It could have been any other word, and that would have tagged and kind of stuck. But they chose the word cocky. And the reason why they're calling me cocky, I think, is because of my age. You know, I'm a guy who's confident in myself, and I feel good about myself. I've accomplished a lot at it so far, and it's just really getting started. And it's sad, but it's two African American men that's calling me cocky. So maybe they're hating on me for being the new fresh black face on the map. I don't know.
Jones wins by submitting Jackson in round 4.
Basically, our strategy was to just fight long and to make each shot count. You know, utilize the low kicks to set up higher kicks and you know, shoot straight. You know, Rampage just knocked out some of the best in the sport, but he tends to knock them out when they're swinging hooks, and he has that shell defense. So we figured if we shot straight, our chances of landing things would be more successful. So that's why I did a lot of up kicks and a lot of straight punches, because, you know, he does the best when he's rolling off of hooks.
So what about Jon Jones impresses you?
He has a lot of weapons, a lot of technique. He's quick, he's very athletic. He has tremendous potential. And, you know, but I'll tell you something, Rampage had the best head movement he's ever had and really impressed me tonight. You know, if he would have let his hands go tonight, it would have been something. For some reason, he didn't.
Now, what about Jon Jones in terms of his legacy? Do you think that he could actually be one of the best fighters of all time? Because right now, no one has ever even come close to really putting a chink in his eye.
Say that. I'm not going to say that about anybody. I don't know, you know, anybody here that I'm going to say, you know, is going to be one of the best fighters of all time, because of all time is a long time. He's a great young man with tremendous potential. Are there people out there who could beat him? Maybe. You know, very, you know.
noticed him actually go for the front kick to the face there. Did you see that as well?
Yeah, him and I did talk about that, but he hasn't, he hasn't learned it yet.
When did you speak to him?
Taught it yesterday, day before yesterday.
Wow. So you actually have a relationship with Jon Jones?
Well, he's a kind of a friend. Yeah.
December 10th, 2011. UFC 140, Jones versus Machida, Toronto, Ontario. Jones is set to defend his title for the second time against former UFC champion Lyoto Machida.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Give it to the kid. My little baby bro. Oh, thank you.
Kids.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jon Jones defeats Machida by second round guillotine.
Is that the toughest fight of your career?
I think it's safe to say it's the toughest fight since I've learned how to fight. My UFC debut was pretty tough only because I was actually engaged in a really tough fight and I didn't really have tactics or have philosophy. Now I have tactics, I have philosophy. I feel as if I'm a seasoned fighter. I know what I'm doing. And I still went through a pretty strong fight. So I think it's safe to say that it's the toughest fight since I've known how to fight.
How'd you set up that choke? That was one of the more impressive moments of your career.
All right, I'll show you. So what you do is you just grab it here, and you okay?
I'm great.
Right.
That felt great.
Cool.
And then you just walked away like ain't no thing. Like it felt like you had a little swag in your step when you walked away there. Just let him fall to the ground.
Hey, it was a good fight, and I'm just grateful that I won it.
Would you say this is the greatest run, 365 days, calendar year in UFC history?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Do you feel as though Jones gets the respect that he deserves? And I know he gets a lot of hype, but considering who he beat in his last 3 fights, and considering the fact that he finished them too, how can you not say that he's the best fighter in the world right now?
Yeah, well, the thing is, again, to call him the best fighter in the world, if you look at Anderson Silva's run since 2006, you know what I mean? Jon Jones is still young. He's had an incredible year, probably one of the greatest years in UFC history. He is on his way.
April 14th, 2012. UFC on Fuel TV 2. Silva versus Gustafsson, Stockholm, Sweden. For the first time in company history, the UFC visits Gustafsson's home country of Sweden. He is booked in his first main event against Thiago Silva. The Mauler defeats Thiago Silva by decision. April 21st, 2012. UFC 145, Jones versus Evans, Atlanta, Georgia. The light heavyweight champion is set to face former training partner and former UFC champion, Rashad Evans.
The reason I say that I felt as if Rashad's fighting out of anger is, it's not that he's going to be in the cage looking like this at me, like giving me a rampage. He's what I meant by that is that he's focused so much on the storyline. So much on the storyline and telling the story about Greg and Wink and how I'm so cocky and things like that. Where me, I kind of feel like I'm being more reactive instead of really trying to attack his personality because I really don't care about defending my personality. I have a very strong fan base and I have a very strong hate base, and it is what it is. So I realized that I'm here to complete a mission, and that's to have my hand raised. And that's why I said he's kind of fighting out of anger, because all that pre-fight drama stuff is just shouldn't take too much of your emotion, too much of your effort. I've been focusing on tactics since I signed that contract, tactics and strategy.
Jon Jones cruises to a dominant decision.
I think I was a little intimidated at some points to just believe in my ability and speed and coordination. So I think as a result, I didn't fight as clean as I would like to have. But it was a great fight, and I respect Rashad a lot and thank him for taking this fight.
What did you learn about yourself tonight?
I learned that I need to just trust my stuff a little bit more and not be intimidated, by people, what they have, and just to trust what I have. Like I said before, I definitely move very fluently when I'm going against a heavy bag or a coach with mitts. And tonight, I kind of felt gangly and uncoordinated at some points. I know that came from slight insecurity in my attacks.
September 22nd, 2012, UFC 152, Jones vs. Belfort, Toronto, Ontario. Originally scheduled as Jon Jones vs. Dan Henderson at UFC 151, 3 weeks prior, Henderson pulls out with an injury less than 2 weeks before the fight. Jon Jones declines to face Chael Sonnen as a late notice replacement. Soon afterwards, the UFC cancels the entire card. Jones is rebooked against yet another former UFC champion, Vitor Belfort.
Jones, what's the relationship right now between you and Dana? Because we've heard so many different things going on. You guys love each other, you hate each other.
I hate him. I hate him. I hate everything about him. No, I'm joking. Dana White's awesome, man. You know, like I've said before, Dana White is a very passionate guy. You know, he takes the passion, his passion, and he goes to like big meetings, and he's talking to a lot of people about getting MMA, you know, legalized and having people endorse MMA. And you know, he has this passion, and his passion is honestly the reason why we're all here right now. So when he's upset with you, you know, he's going to be passionate. So, you know, I forgive Dana White for any insults he might have given me, and I'm looking forward to talking to him and just moving forward. You know, it's like I've said before, you know, me and Dana White are both ambassadors of this great sport, and two of us not being on the same page really makes no sense for anyone. I really want to get this sport as far as possible and get the word out, and I think working along with Dana in the UFC is a great way to do that. So I'm looking forward to just moving forward, putting on this great fight, UFC 152, and you know, putting this past us. Ultimately, you know, why wasn't there a good enough, a great card? You know, what was wrong with that card? Why did it have to get canceled? You know, I watch bar fights. I love fights, no matter what level it is. So I think it was more of an insult to the other fighters on the card that, you know, pretty much, you know, it was almost like saying they weren't good enough to host the card without me and Dan Henderson. And I think it was more of an offensive thing. They should be mad at the superiors, not mad at me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think at the end of the day, I probably would have done what was best for my career. And I can't really carry the weight of what happened because it really wasn't my thing. You know, I showed up to fight. My teammates was on that card. I would have loved to have been able to watch them fight. But, you know, I think some real questions need to be asked to Dana about why the fight got canceled.
And how do you think the fans here in Toronto will react to you? Because obviously you've become sort of this polarizing figure, but if it wasn't for your decision, they wouldn't have a chance to see a UFC light heavyweight title fight. So do you think they will actually greet you with cheers as opposed to boos here in Toronto?
You know, I'm hoping that people are grateful for me being here and being able to entertain them ultimately. But I'm predicting that I'll probably get booed more than cheered. But I'm okay with it. I've come to terms with it, and I'll still compete my best.
I'm here with the champion, ladies and gentlemen. You've maintained a great sense of humor through all this. Jon, this is a real experienced opponent you're taking on, a guy who's been around the game for a long time. Give us your thoughts on Vitor and what tomorrow night means to you.
Well, I honestly believe that Vitor's one of the best in the world. You know, it's as good as it gets. And I'm excited to go out there and do my best, do what I always do.
I'm excited to watch you, sir. Good luck to you. The champion, ladies and gentlemen, Johnny Bones Jones!
Jones defeats Belfort by key lock in round 4.
I would rate the performance. I think it was a good performance, but there's definitely a lot of room to improve. You know, Vitor had me second guessing myself. I just got to get more comfortable in the octagon. You know, I worked so hard on my stand-up and so hard on my wrestling and things. I definitely need to embrace jiu-jitsu more and be a person who practices what I preach. And I definitely preach being a mixed martial artist and, you know, being passionate about all martial arts. But I can admit that, you know, jiu-jitsu isn't something that I do every day. So I thought my top game looked really poor. I think the ground and pound was pretty good. That's something that Greg Jackson really prides himself on, is having good ground and pound. Striking was fair. And as far as getting the fans behind me again, I think I have a lot of fans behind me. Obviously, there's going to be people who support you, and there's going to be people who want to see you fall, and that just goes with being in the position that I am in. But the biggest thing is just to focus on the people who is pulling for you, rooting for you, and want to see you make it, and just focus on them.
With a performance like that, considering how resilient he was, he didn't tap, obviously, and he fought out of it. Does that sort of win the fans back? Do you think that all is forgotten now?
I sure hope so. You know, John is a really good guy. He's such a tough warrior. And to see, he was in trouble. And, he showed a lot of heart and a lot of guts. And some other people might not have done that. And I hope he inspired a lot of people tonight.
He came out to Bob Marley's Could You Be Loved. What message was being sent there?
I think he was asking if he could be loved.
December 8th, 2012, UFC on Fox 5, Henderson vs. Diaz, Seattle, Washington. Alexander Gustafsson is booked as the co-main event for a big Fox card opposite former Pride and UFC champion Shogun Rua.
Do you enjoy now being a star?
Yeah, I enjoy every second of it. So it's a great opportunity for me to show myself and show the others everything about me. So I'm just happy to be in the light.
Gustafsson steamrolls the durable Shogun and wins by decision.
All I can say is I'm ready for a title shot, whoever has the belt. When I get the chance to fight for a title, I'll be more than ready for it.
April 27th, 2013, UFC 159, Jones vs. Sonnen, Newark, New Jersey. Despite coming from a title loss as a challenger at middleweight, the UFC books Chael Sonnen as Jon Jones' next opponent.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Can I turn on a shake?
He's changed a little bit as far as his public persona.
He's changed a lot. Jon Jones has changed a lot. And what you have to understand is that he came into this business as a kid. I mean, he's a young kid. And all the fame and all the pressure and all the stuff, I think he's really starting to catch his stride now. And I mean, look at the shape he's in for this fight. I couldn't be happier with Jon Jones.
Does he have any shot in hell against you? Do you give him even a 0.01% chance?
Chael is a great fighter, man. He's a great fighter. People are just disregarding him completely, and I'm not. My camp is not. We've seen what he did to Anderson. We see what he did to Brian Stan. I saw what he did to Nate Marquardt. He's legit. He's legit. He doesn't always come out on top, but he always brings a fight. And I've never fought in a guy who's a southpaw, who actually shoots from the southpaw stance and things like that. So style makes matchups, and I'm taking this very seriously. I believe that this could be the fight of my life, to be honest with you, or I could just dominate him and eat him alive. One of those are true, and we'll find out which one is going to be true. I'm ready for both of them.
Jones successfully defeats Sonnen by finishing him by TKO late in the first round. September 21st, 2013, UFC 165, Jones vs. Gustafsson, Toronto, Ontario. Jones meets the Swedish fighter Alexander Gustafsson.
In a fight, anything can happen. So my job is to respect him wholeheartedly, train, give it my all. But with that being said, because I respect him wholeheartedly and because I study so much, I see exactly where he truly is. And I know where I am, I know what I've done, and I believe in my training. So I would just say I have a really honest assessment of what I've accomplished and what he's accomplished, the way he's performed, the way I performed, and I speak about it honestly. And every fighter has a chance to win a fight, but my job is to make sure he has very, very small chances, and I think I've done that.
Yeah, I'm shocking the world on Saturday.
When you look at him, what are the holes that you see in his game?
It's very tough. He's a very complete fighter. He has the belt for a reason. He's the pound-for-pound best guy in the world right now for a reason. So it's hard. It's hard. In my camp, I've been turning every stone I possibly can. I've been taking the long run. No shortcuts. I've been training. I've been breaking records in this camp. So I've done my homework. I'm ready to go. And I haven't been focusing so much about what he's gonna do. It's hard because he's so unpredictable. So I've been focusing on what I have to bring, my tools, and what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna go into this fight open-minded, and I will be ready for anything.
Personality-wise, I think he seems like a great kid, a great young man. As a fighter, I believe that I'm better than him in literally every way.
We are still buzzing here in Toronto because we just witnessed an instant classic between the reigning and defending UFC light heavyweight champion Jon Jones and Alexander Gustafsson. Who'd you have it for?
Well, I scored a 3-2 for Jones. I had 2-4-5 for Jones and 1-3 for Gustafsson. I think a lot of people I talked to had something similar to that, but obviously it was a very close fight, so a lot of people were kind of going back and forth. I did hear a couple people who had it for Gustafsson. So, I mean, we talked before this fight happened. We said, who's going to be this guy's rival? He doesn't have a rival. Who's going to be his Joe Frazier, that sort of thing for Muhammad Ali. I don't know if this is the guy, but that was the event that needed to happen for Jones to sort of establish that was somebody. Now, when they roll it back and they have a rematch, which it seems like that would be, depending on how things go, the way that the UFC would look at going for it, we might have the seedlings for something like that, which is kind of a cool thing, because in John Jones' era, so far we haven't seen that.
Jones would go on to defend his title once again at UFC 172 over Glover Teixeira. January 3rd, 2015, UFC 182, Jones versus Cormier. John Jones is finally set to face his rival, the undefeated Daniel Cormier.
This is the Ali Frazier. I've never had more people interested in a fight in my entire career. It's just the most random people, old ladies, and just, almost everybody I run into. I feel like this fight has definitely elevated me and Daniel's exposure level. And so, as far as just publicity-wise, this is the Ali Frazier, supposedly.
You don't feel that way deep down? Like, you don't feel the tension there? The world is watching?
The world is definitely watching, but I don't feel too much tension. I've been in these situations so many times before, and I don't think people are really grasping that. I think to the fans and to media and to everybody else, this is just so crazy. The only thing that's been crazy about this fight to me is what happened at the press conference and the amount of exposure this fight's got. I thought, it's a little wild. But to me and my camp, this is what we do, man. This is what we do. Do I have nerves? I have nerves going into this fight. But I have nerves going into every fight. Okay. But you gotta really try to put yourself in my mind for a minute and think about what I've been against. This is not the first guy that's supposed to be a monster. And every time I go out there and I do my job. And so just through proving myself over and over again, my confidence and my self-belief is on an all-time high.
Why are people so obsessed with the real John Jones and your image and what you say and they scrutinize? Why do you think that is?
I think it's because no one really knows me. No one really knows me, and you can't really criticize or scrutinize my technique, because I do things right inside the octagon. So I think it just gives people something to talk about. I think it's it's something for the trolls, it's something for the fans to engage in, it's something for the MMA community to have something to blog about and stuff like that. Not to say that that I'm the center of everything, but for the people who like to talk about me, it's just, I look at it as it's just something to have people talking. Well, you can't say that I gas out in my fights. You can't say that I do steroids or there's nothing to talk about when it comes to me as a fighter. I do things right.
John Jones wins by decision.
My plan is to become the greatest fighter of all time, and it's so feasible, it's so attainable. All I got to do is just stay focused and keep believing just the way I believe, and to keep working. And I do believe 2015 will be the year I solidify it. And as far as beating him in somewhat of his own style, I watched him fight so much that I actually absorb who he is. I absorb grinding. I absorb, I watched him hold my boy Frank Mir against the cage, and I was just like, I see what you're doing there. And just watching my opponents so much, I start to subconsciously inherit their talent and their gifts. And so a lot of times you see me do exactly what they would want to do to me, I'd end up doing it to them. I am proud to say that this team is unbroken. So everyone who brought Breaking Bones shirts saw what happened. Feel free to buy yourself an unbroken shirt from Reebok.
January 24th, 2015, UFC on Fox, Gustafsson versus Johnson, Stockholm, Sweden. After a victory over Jimmy Manuwa in London, England in March, Gustafsson is matched up against the top-ranked Anthony Johnson as the main event in Stockholm, Sweden.
What concerns you most about him?
Well, he has some good striking abilities. He mixes things up very well, and he's a very strong guy. So yeah, let's see what happens.
Anthony Johnson wins by a vicious knockout early in the opening round. April 28, 2015. Jon Jones stripped of title. The UFC strips Jon Jones of his light heavyweight title in the wake of his arrest on felony hit-and-run charges. Jones was set to face Anthony Johnson at UFC 187. Jones was arrested earlier that week in Albuquerque on a felony charge of leaving the scene of an accident involving death or personal injury.
And you know, I see like the light turn green, and I assumed that it was my green light, but really it was a green light for, you know, people that were going straight in traffic, and I was actually turning. So I just stepped on the gas when I saw the green light, and I find myself driving right into ongoing traffic. And yeah.
Did you get hurt?
I didn't get hurt. I didn't get hurt, no.
So it was a 3-car accident, right?
Yeah, I think I hit one car, and then that car collided into another car.
Do you remember what was going through your mind when you got into the accident? Like, were you aware, like, what have I done? Like, what were you saying to yourself? What were you thinking?
You know, it all happened so fast.
Yeah.
I initially knew I messed up big time. I started thinking about, well, first I realized I wasn't hurt.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think subconsciously I just figured, all right, nobody's gotten hurt. You know, I'm not hurt. Maybe we didn't hit that hard. I just thought to myself, man, I went out last night. I haven't been home yet. I probably still smell like the night before. I need to get myself out of here. You know, this is gonna be terrible. This is gonna be messy. I gotta go. I was afraid, man. I freaked out. And I was afraid to talk to the police at the time. So I just thought, let me get myself away from this. So.
October 3rd, 2015, UFC 192. Cormier versus Gustafsson, Houston, Texas. Despite coming off a loss, the UFC books Gustafsson to challenge for the 205-pound title against champion Daniel Cormier.
I really like the relationship that you have with Daniel. You kind of take shots at each other subtly through social media and whatnot. Has he said anything, though, that's really gotten under your skin, that really pissed you off?
Nothing.
Nothing. Even when he tries to discredit you, he just told me that he thinks you're overrated, things like that. None of that bothers you?
Nothing. I think it's good that he thinks I'm overrated, you know. I shocked the world on Saturday. I'm taking that belt. I'm becoming the world champion.
In a Fight of the Year performance, DC narrowly defeats Gustafsson to retain his title.
But Alexander earned my respect, and it's like, it's very hard to be outside of yourself in a moment like that when your heart's racing as you walk back to the center of the octagon, not exactly knowing what happened. You're bloodied up, you're hurting, your body's just like, everything hurts, and it's like, you have to be honest. Like, you have to tell the truth, and the truth is, that guy beat me up tonight and made me fight at a level that I didn't even know I can go to, and I appreciate him for it.
April 23rd, 2016, UFC 197, Jones versus St. Preux, Las Vegas, Nevada. Jon Jones makes his UFC return to face late-notice contender Ovince St. Preux for the interim UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. Jones cruises to a decision victory and becomes interim UFC champion.
I gave Daniel the finger leaving the octagon. It felt great to do. It creates buzz. It gets people ready for the fight. You know, it's like, okay, you know, me and DC don't like each other. He's been in my sights this whole time. We had a minor bump in the road. We had to take a little detour, and now it's back to you know, this beef with DC. So it wasn't, there was not too many emotions involved with me doing it. It was more for fun. It was more to get a reaction from the fans and restart this storyline between me and DC.
July 9th, 2016. UFC 200, Tate vs. Nunes, Las Vegas, Nevada. Originally scheduled Cormier vs. Jones as the main event for UFC 200, Jones would be pulled off the card due to a positive PED test announcement just days before the fight. Jon Jones would subsequently be stripped of his interim title.
Mark, it was a surreal sight in many ways, especially when you consider the kind of mood Jon Jones was in less than 24 hours ago. In the best mood possible, just 72 hours away from his fight. Now here we are, a complete 180. He's crying in front of the media. Didn't say too much as far as what the substance was, what's the next step for him. But I'm curious, just right off the bat, what was your biggest takeaway from what we saw here moments ago?
It's just kind of sad. The whole thing is kind of sad, and like you said, it's amazing how quickly things can turn in this sport where less than 24 hours ago, Jon Jones was on another dais in another part of MGM Grand talking trash to Daniel Cormier, talking about a fight that's going to probably make him a lot of money. Now that fight is off. Now he's possibly facing a 2-year ban from the sport, just like that, in less than 24 hours. It's unbelievable.
Jon, I'm just wondering, have you had a chance to communicate with DC at all? And if you haven't, what's your message to him? What would you say to him?
I haven't had the opportunity to talk to him. And I just wanted to tell him that I'm sorry. That's really it. I know this fight meant a lot to him.
May 27, 2017. UFC Fight Night 109. Gustafsson vs. Teixeira, Stockholm, Sweden. After a victory over Jan Blachowicz in September 2016, the Mauler returns to face former title challenger Glover Teixeira in the main event once again in Stockholm, Sweden. Gustafsson defeats Teixeira by KO in the 5th round. July 29, 2017, UFC 214, Cormier vs. Jones 2, Anaheim, California. Jon Jones returns to action after a year's suspension to once again face Daniel Cormier for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship.
How long do you think I've been doing steroids?
Well, you're probably you've earned a title fight, so I imagine you're about 3-0 in the UFC, so those first few fights. Ovent St. Preux, Guzmão, and Forrest Bonner, or whatever his name is. What's that guy's name that he beat? Stephan Bonner. Stephan Bonner. Those 3 fights is when you didn't do steroids, but everything else in the middle is eliminated.
When I started powerlifting, 4 days a week, and I started, with these chicken-ass legs with my bad genetics, I started deadlifting 600 pounds, squatting 500 pounds. USADA was in full effect. So how did I get away with that?
You did. I'm not saying you did it last year versus Ovent St. Preux. You were clean last year when you fought Ovent St. Preux.
When I was the biggest ever.
That's why you look like you look.
How do I look?
You're a bum. That's why you looked like a bum last time.
How do I look, DC?
Hey, that's all just, hey, listen, that's all just for show. That's all just for show. I don't care about that.
Who looks like a junkie here today?
That's just all for show.
Look at
you
this
can
guy's
show
face.
your six-pack.
Who looks like a junkie
You
here
can just
today?
show your six-pack. That's fine. That's all for show.
Who looks like a junkie here today?
I look like a... I'm
you look
not,
like a crackhead with a suit on.
Was that?
You look like a crackhead with a suit on.
I could look like a crackhead with a suit on, but I've never been a crackhead like you, though. So you can say I look like one, but I've never been one. I've never been one.
Next question.
And in the main event, we saw the return of Jon Jones. He is now once again the light heavyweight champion of the UFC. He finished Daniel Cormier in the 3rd round. It all started with a left head kick and then eventually some ground and pound. A knockout for Jon Jones 6.5 years after he became the youngest champion in UFC history. Once again, now he is the reigning champion in the 205-pound division.
Yeah, I felt like this was one of those fights that the world had to see. It was the biggest fight of the year, and I even heard rumors that Donald Trump was going to show up. Did any of you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, to be a part of that, it's inspirational. It lets me know that my story is one that the world could look at and get something from. It lets me know that that all the faith and all the hard work and consistency and pushing through, it's something that intrigues the world. I mean, there's never been a champion like me, a young champion. Well, there has been, actually. I would say my career is kind of comparable to Mike Tyson, a guy who had it all, a guy who made a lot of mistakes. And I think I'm like a modern situation, and I think people are interested to see how I'm going to handle it. And I think that's what's most intriguing, is to see how someone can come back from so much bullshit, right?
How is this second title reign going to be different than the first one? What's what's going to change for this one going forward?
Well, my effort. I think I'll make a conscious effort to just do better. I'm also a lot more aware of who I am and the responsibility that comes with being a champion, a UFC champion. And so I don't want to sit up here and make promises and say that I'm going to be a saint, because I'm a wild motherfucker at the end of the day. God bless you guys.
However, Jones would fail his fight week drug test and would be stripped of his third UFC championship title. The fight would also be overturned and declared a no contest. December 29, 2018, UFC 232, Jones vs. Gustafsson 2, Inglewood, California. Originally set to take place in Las Vegas, Nevada, the UFC makes an unprecedented move, relocating the entire card to California, citing licensing issues with the Nevada Athletic Commission. Jon Jones will rematch Alexander Gustafsson for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship.